Instant coffee is super convenient, no doubt about that. But is it unhealthy? Does it lose the natural properties of coffee? Is instant coffee like the McDonald's of coffee? We love instant coffee because it's already pre-ground, pre-brewed, and dried into a powder. You just add hot water and you're done. No grinding, no brewing, no filtering needed. But how does instant coffee compare to ground coffee? Instant coffee retains antioxidant activity. One study compared instant coffee to ground coffee, and they actually found the instant coffee had higher antioxidant activity per gram. Although, since we normally use a smaller amount of instant coffee, when they did the math, it was about a tie. Similar antioxidant activity per amount of coffee drank normally. So that's good news. On the other hand, there is a concern about instant coffee. It contains a higher level of acrylamide. Acrylamide is a molecule formed through heat. It's found in baked goods, fried foods, and coffee. But the process of making instant coffee concentrates the acrylamide. So instant coffee has about twice as much acrylamide as regular ground coffee. This is a concern because acrylamide is a probable human carcinogen. But the question for these is always at what dose? And studies have shown levels of acrylamide are below safety thresholds, both for ground and instant coffee. You'd have to drink liters of it daily to get into problematic ranges. Okay, another question is caffeine content, and instant coffee tends to have less caffeine than regular ground coffee. How much? Varies from brand to brand, but typically 30% less or so. So this is a double-edged knife. If you have sleep issues, for example, or if you have caffeine sensitivity, then instant might actually be better for you. Or you may even need to avoid caffeine altogether. On the other hand, if you drink coffee for that jolt and you need the caffeine to stay awake, then you might need a larger dose of instant, or instant might not do it for you. Another interesting aspect of coffee is that coffee beans contain some molecules that can raise your cholesterol. These are called diterpenes. And interestingly, these are lost almost entirely during the process of making instant coffee. So instant coffee contains almost no diterpenes. So it's actually pretty good for your cholesterol, although you can get the same result by filtering ground coffee, which gets rid of diterpenes as well. And the last characteristic before we get into the actual health effects is flavor. Some people describe instant coffee as having a bitter taste or a flat taste compared to ground coffee. During the making of instant coffee, some of the molecules are lost. Some of the oils, for example, are lost. So this could account for the differences in taste. Although, of course, this is subjective. You tell me in the comments if you prefer instant or ground. Okay, so far looking at composition, this is really interesting. But what is the actual health effect of different types of coffee? We consistently see a lower risk of heart disease and stroke in coffee drinkers. And this is also seen with instant coffee. In some studies, it looks like the ground coffee might be a little stronger, a little better at reducing the risk of heart disease, although it's hard to tell because the comparison is usually not one-to-one head-to-head. But the bottom line is we see a lower risk of heart disease for both types. Another limitation to bear in mind is all of these studies are what we call observational studies. They're looking at these relationships statistically, but we don't have long-term randomized trials looking at the effects of different types of coffee, so there's a level of uncertainty there. As far as cancer, we see lower levels of liver cancer for both ground coffee and instant coffee, and a similar level, about a 50% lower risk of liver cancer in consumers of either type of coffee compared to non-drinkers. As far as risk of death, we see lower risk of all-cause mortality, total deaths linked to both types, ground and instant coffee, also a lower risk of cancer mortality and cardiovascular mortality. And again, in some studies, the ground coffee looks like it might have a stronger effect, although the difference between them is not quite statistically significant. Chronic liver disease, both linked to lower risk, with ground coffee having a stronger effect. Alzheimer's, similar picture, both linked to a lower risk, with a suggestion of a stronger effect for ground coffee. Another thing to look out for are additives in instant coffee. Some brands are flavored, so they contain things like creamer and sugar. So ideally, favor pure instant coffee with no additives. So is instant coffee unhealthy? No. We see mostly benefits. It's possible that ground coffee is even better, even stronger in some areas. In other areas, they seem about equivalent. Instant coffee does have more acrylamide, but it seems to be a level that is not sufficient to cause issues. And in fact, if anything, we see less cancer, not more, at least with regards to liver cancer. In fact, it's similar level of risk as for ground coffee. And it has less caffeine. That could be worse for some people, better for others. and it's more convenient. So here's what I would do. If I'm in a rush, I would just do the instant coffee and I wouldn't sweat it. On days that I have more time, I would do the ground brewed coffee. That way you reduce the exposure a bit if there's an issue and you kind of mix it up. Couple more tips to increase the safety of instant coffee. Choose pure instant coffee, not pre-mixed with additives. And number two, if you can, choose freeze-dried brands of instant coffee. There are two ways of producing instant coffee: freeze drying and spray drying. And freeze drying is a little better at retaining some of these beneficial molecules like antioxidants, and also preserves flavor better. For more on the link between coffee and cancer, check out this recent video, and I'll meet you in there.